Hey guys, and welcome back to another Phoenix Guide to Dungeon Runs. Kaz here, and we're continuing our trek through the dungeons of the Shadowlands. Friendly reminder that these are still in beta, and thus subject to change. Let's go adventuring. Today we'll be looking at the Mists of Tirna Scithe, a fallen grove in the zone of Ardenweald that is currently under siege by some familiar enemies and familiar headaches. 3 bosses and a small event await us in the Misty Woods here, so let's jump in. First on our list of invaders is the evil Ingra Moloch, a Drusvarian leader attempting to subjugate the inhabitants of the grove and complete their victory here. There is a small grove just before the boss that can only be accessed if you have someone in your party with the Night Fate Covenant. Inside are seeds that can bloom during the fight, but I personally haven't seen it happen. Now, you've also probably noticed there are 2 enemies in this fight, Ingra himself and Droman Alfarin, a native to the Ardenweald. Tanks will want to keep aggro on both enemies and coordinate with DPS to interrupt Ingra from casting Spirit Bolt throughout the fight. It's mostly harmless, but it's always good to start some good habits. Droman will occasionally cast something called Bewildering Pollen, which is a cone-shaped ability that will disorient anyone hit for several seconds. Just step to the side to avoid this as much as possible. Ingra will also cast Force Compliance, which is then followed by Droman casting Tears of the Forest, raining down blue anima. This anima does damage on contact and leaves a small pool that will tick damage while inside. Now worth noting, if the anima lands on the seeds from the grove before the encounter, it will water the seeds and grant some nice bonuses if they come to bloom. So the idea here is to focus down Droman Alfarin until they reach 20% health, at which point they will break free and stun the boss for 12 seconds, and also cause him to take 200% increased damage while stunned. After the 12 seconds, however, the boss will shackle Droman and the fight repeats. Not shown in the video here is the boss's third ability, which is Embrace Darkness and Death Shroud. Ingra covers himself in dark energy that deals damage to players that hit him while also dealing a small amount of shadow damage to players every second that he is embraced. Breaking Droman free from his shackle will handle this effect quite nicely. Now after Ingra, you'll find yourselves in the Mistveiled Tangle, a small maze that takes place in the dungeon itself. If you've ever played Ocarina of Time, you'll find yourself somewhat at home here, as the way through the maze is discovered by walking towards the pedestals in front of each entrance and finding the one that's different from the rest. That pedestal will be the correct door. Choosing an incorrect door, however, will port you back to the beginning of the maze, but take heart, champions. Doors previously opened will stay that way. After the maze, you'll face the Mistcaller, the trickster behind the maze, and have some pretty entertaining mechanics to deal with here. The first ability seen here also happens throughout the fight, Dodgeball. This targets a player and shoots a ball of anima in a line at the targeted player. Everyone else just needs to shift to the side a bit and they're fine. The second ability is Patty Cake, which deals a fair amount of damage and disorients the target for 5 seconds if the cast is not interrupted. Bear in mind, the spell can only be interrupted by the player targeted by the ability. That means if it's targeting the tank, only the tank can interrupt and not your party members. At certain health percentages, the boss will cast something called Guessing Game, which splits the boss into illusory images that you have to find the correct one. If you remember Skeetra from the Nazoth raid, it works pretty much the same. Killing the wrong image results in a large damage burst that hits the entire party, while finding the correct one brings the boss back into play. Now much like the maze, the way through this mechanic is finding the odd one out, but I seem to have more trouble with it than some as the illusions spawn in pairs of 2, and I haven't quite figured out the pattern. An ability not seen in the video is Freeze Tag, where the boss summons a Vulpin that will chase down a nearby player. If she catches you, a large freezing nova is released and stuns anyone nearby for 8 seconds. Just avoid being near the fox and you'll be perfectly fine. After the Mistcaller will be a few pulls of Gorm that you'll have to deal with, and one notable enemy here is the Spine Maw Staghorn. While none of these trash packs are exceptionally crazy, the Staghorn has an ability called Stimulate Resistance that you will need to interrupt, otherwise all nearby mobs will develop a massive overshield that you'll have to deal with before actually being able to damage them. After the Gorm Gorge, you'll come upon the final boss, Dredova, a Gorm Hive Mother feasting on the seat of Aloha. There are several things to watch out for here, and most of it's movement related. Mind Link is an ability that links players with a tether that deals shadow damage while active and can only be removed by running away from each other and splitting the tether. At certain health percentages, the boss will also cast Consumption, attempting to eat the remaining soul of the Loa and enrage herself. While feasting, she gives herself a damage shield that has to be damaged down before the cast can be interrupted. However, while she is feasting, she will also cause anima to rain down that deals a good bit of damage if it hits you. So watch your feet here, get the damage shield gone, and this mechanic is in the bag. Another ability to watch for is Acid Expulsion, which is a large glob of acid the boss will launch at players that has to be avoided. If the fight lasts for too long, the number of acid globules fired will go up, and safe zones will become quite limited here. Now a cast you'll see at the very end of the video is called Accelerated Incubation, which summons Gormling larvae that will randomly target players and race towards them. Tanks will have to pick these up quickly and also watch out, because once they die, they leave a pool of nature damage on the ground that can hit pretty hard if you stand in it for too long. After saving the grove, make sure to enjoy your loot, put it to good use in the next dungeon video. Bear in mind, these dungeons are still in beta and they could change on release. Otherwise, good luck and happy hunting.